Here, joined today by a former teammate of mine, baseball teammate ever since we were 7 years old. My first baseball team I ever played on, the Central Cumberland Church team. Mike was he was this guy from Texas who there was this rumor that this guy was going to play on our team, and he threw so hard he burned his dad's hand when they played catch in the yard. So we're thinking, oh, this guy's a stud. So anyway, Mike O'Neill has joined us today. Mike is a former baseball player in college, and I played all the way through college with him in the summer time too. He's a high school football player. He's a high school football coach, and he's got a great story, and he's got a book called Don't Back Down. A true story of perseverance through faith, determination, and a positive attitude. And so I wanted to have him as my guest today and talk about his experience, talk about his book, encourage everybody that's listening to get the book. It's an inspiring story. Welcome, Mike. Thank you for being here.
Paul Bakke, I certainly appreciate, my friend, that you reached out and we get to spend some time together. I'm looking right behind you. It looks like one of the teams we played on in Northwest. And
that's right. That's the number one ranking that you talked about in the book. We were number one in the nation for 3 weeks. My mom had that publication blown up, and so I've had it framed for a long time. It's a great conversation piece, a great memory.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we that ragtag bunch is in the picture there, and we're at the top of the rankings, Northwest Community College.
That's right. It still holds the record of these days. I mean, it's still 44-6.
44-6.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the time, we were 42-4 until we went to the regionals, and we got
yeah. Well, that's another story.
It's another story because we won the state. We beat East Mississippi 5 out of 6 times during the year, including in the state tournament, and then they get to go to the regional.
Yeah.
And then we beat them the first time, and they came back and beat us twice in the double elimination tournament. They just got the momentum, and just one of those things. So it was tough to end, but it was a great experience. And Mike and I played there together, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So talk a little bit about the inspiration of your book. You know, you definitely used the strength of your mind in your recent battle with throat cancer. What was the inspiration of your book?
You know, Paul, I was in the middle of, I've been a high school teacher. I went through a career switch back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, I was, a salesman and chasing the dollar and always wanted to coach. I had coached middle school football, finally made that transition. And so been coaching since 2001 and teaching. I was a business teacher and just really loved my job. I was at probably the largest high school in Shelby County, or in the state of Tennessee, actually, Collierville High School, building a program in the middle of building it, and came down with throat cancer. Had a twinge in my throat that summer before, kind of played it off. Make a long story short, I went to MD Anderson here in Houston the week before the playoffs started. Got treatment. It was a brutal treatment. Came back. I'm in remission for a couple of years. By this time, it's March of 2020. And then they metastasized. That's kind of where my book starts, in the intro of me going back to MD Anderson, the doctor saying, "Look, Mike, these things are back, but they're in your lungs now. They're out of your throat to your lungs, and that's what my brand of cancer does. It either goes to your bones or your lungs." And I'm thinking, all right, that's the aha moment. What now? And of course, I'm in the middle of COVID. It just kicked in, right? It's rearing its ugly head. Now I'm stage 4 cancer once again. And I had to make some decisions, and I had to fight full cancer full time because I had to chase a cure and get on some trials and that sort of thing. So eventually I got out of teaching and I retired. I retired from Shelby County, the city of Collierville. And, and that's kind of when I picked up the pen and started writing. I thought, my wife's upstairs doing Zoom calls. And I thought, you know what? I need to keep busy. And Paul, I couldn't put the pen down for a year. I wrote for a solid year, and I've never really journaled. I wrote a thesis in graduate school And that's the extent of it. I never wrote a bunch of letters, I wrote some for being a teacher and stuff, but I could not put the pen down. It was so cathartic, and it was just, I know why you counselors probably preach, hey, pick up a pen and write.
That's right. Write it down. It helps you clarify things. You start
Well,
to see things. You start to
you
get clear about what your experience has been and
well, that's
how
what
you
I was
feel
able
about it.
that's what I was able to do. I was able to go back and look at time, because really the motivation to write was for my kids and my grandchildren, future grandchildren.
This is my story.
This is my story, and some of
Yeah.
it's not all good. It's some's good, bad, and ugly. And I wanted to teach them, because at the time I didn't know how much time I had left either. I didn't know if it was months, if it was a couple of years, and so couldn't put the pen down. And I thought, here we go. So 160,000 words later, and my book's not that long, by the way. It's 74,000. It's memoir size, but my original manuscript is 160,000 words, and eventually I'll doctor that up to give it to my family only, for their eyes only. But I had to keep the narrative going with the other book, and I mean with Don't Back Down, but I took some of the key things that I've gone through life with adversity and dealing with change and
Right.
just certain things that we all have to deal with, and
Right.
so
Right.
that was
So
the
yeah,
motivation.
that's what I was going to ask you about, your positive attitude in the face of adversity. We talk here about a lot about how natural negative thinking is, and how it takes a lot of determination, grit, and practice to focus on attitudes that don't get stuck in how bad things are. And it's because it's
Right.
easy to do that.
Right.
So and your question, what do I need to do next to beat cancer, was your response.
Right.
It's a great example of that focus, not just on positives, but overall on helpful thinking that helps you, maximizes your chances to overcome whatever it is.
Right. Well, I was looking at one of your previous podcasts, and you guys were talking about reevaluating the situation. Well, that hit directly at me, because I got to reevaluate my situation every 6 weeks. I go from scan to scan. My scans aren't good, which I didn't get a good one last time a week ago. You got to shift. You got to reevaluate, and there's no time to, all right, am I going to feel sorry for myself because my cancer has grown again and I lost ground from what I made up from the last scan? I got to go back to work. I got to figure out, with my brilliant doctors and the best place on the planet to deal with my particular cancer, let's go to work. And that's kind of been the attitude. So it's been, how do we reevaluate and refocus? And, it's easier said than done. Obviously, you go through the emotion of, you have some setbacks, but I'm beyond that. I'm like, let's go. Let's keep this thing running. And my doctor, I got one of the best doctors on the planet. I asked her about a couple months ago. I said, Doc, what's my time span? She goes, Mike, you've exceeded it. And I couldn't help but laugh. I'm like, wow, it's gravy now. She goes, here's the deal though. We could be having this conversation in 10 years. I'm not going to promise you anything.
Right.
But it could happen. I said, Doc, that's all I need to know. You've given me hope.
Keeps you in the moment.
It keeps me in the moment. And I've been able to, outside of just a regular grind career where you get in the busyness of life, I've been able to, do some things and experience some things that,
Sure. Yeah. Talk about the perspective change that you got. Talk about the busyness of life and how that changed to appreciating things more, settling down. And
I think anything that happens in life, you get things that happen that are not good, obviously, but I've seen so much silver lining. Even the first round I dealt with cancer, my wife, she was traveling the world with her job. She's a football widow during football season. I go from August to November, and we rarely see each other. I mean, the hours are that crazy, and it really gave us a chance just to kind of stop life and just kind of spend some time. And our daughter came in town. She had just graduated school, and she goes, Dad, I want I want to start singing again. And we're like, what? Really? Okay. So we hooked her up with a renowned voice coach that worked with Beyonce. And he goes, man, she's got a career. She's in Nashville doing her thing now. And
That's
my
amazing.
son came to Houston and surprised his longtime girlfriend and asked her to get married. And so there was some great things that were just, you just, and then my daughter Brooke came with her grandchildren, and we just got to reset. And so definitely some silver lining in any situation. So
Okay. So the book is it's a love story. It really is. It's a love of team, love competition, coaching, and the impact that you've been able to have on people as a coach, the relationships you've had, in sports and things like that. And also the love of your life, your wife, Beth. And the
yes.
both of you, and she didn't back down from any challenges either.
Oh heck no. I mean, Beth's got a book in there somewhere. She's quick to coach me up if
Mhm.
come on, man, are you taking your meds? Are you doing this? But this book is really about it starts out pretty sports heavy, but it
Right.
just kind of creates a foundation, and then I kind of shift gears. I talk
Yeah.
about my wife and I's love story, and
That
kind
story
of
is a
how,
great story in and of itself. By itself,
well,
that is a great story.
you just have to deal with a lot of adversity that we had to deal with together as a couple. And she really showed me how to advance through it. I mean, basically, don't let things fester. Take it
Yeah.
head on. And
Right.
whether your decision's right or wrong, learn from it and advance through it. You're not going to be right every time. And
Right.
and you remember the 20s. The 20s were a blur. It was just a crazy time that I know you were making that transition out of college baseball and getting into the role. I had that reality gap too, that I had to
Right.
mature up and do some things. But
Right.
Beth and I really got through that. But the story goes on where we talk about just really, raising a family, and then that back and forth. Should I get into coaching? Should I not? What's the
Right.
temptation? And I
Right.
had to
What's your
wrap my mind.
passion? What's
I had to,
important? Is it the
well, I call it,
business? Yeah.
yeah, I call it a spiritual gift. And I knew I wasn't going to get rich teaching high school. I, I, it took me a decade to wrap my mind around that. And I'm so glad I made that decision, because it exceeded all my expectations. I would be kicking myself now, Paul, in the situation with having cancer. If I just probably would have grinded through a corporate career, I'd be going, why didn't I take that chance?
Right.
So for me personally, I think that's part of where my attitude goes. I look back and go, I don't have any regrets. I just
Yeah.
don't from what I made. I wish I would
We
have won more games, but that comes with the territory too, right?
Right. Right. Well, and that's we recommend a book called there's a book that's called Grit.
Mhm.
We recommend to a lot of people, and one of
Right,
the things that it talks about in there is find something that you really love to do. Find your passion.
right.
Get really good at it.
Yeah,
Those are two foundations of sort of being happy and successful and making it. And but the third part is have it impact other people outside of you. And it can't just be what you like to do and you're good
right.
at. It's got to have an impact on other people. So talk a little bit about the coaching impact that you've had, that the coaches that have impacted you, how you've learned. I remember in the book you talked about you wanted to be the kind of coach that you wanted to have.
Right.
So talk about the impact that you had being coached and how you've transitioned that into your coaching style.
Yeah, I had a very unique situation, Paul. All the baseball that we played, I was getting a little bit frustrated because I quit growing. As you recall, because you've known me forever, I was one of these kids that quit growing in probably sixth grade, right? And as time went on, I thought, you know what, maybe this football thing by my junior year is maybe not for me. I love the game and I love hitting people, but I was like, wow, I see these guys that's growing past me, and I'm playing all this baseball, and I'll quit. I'll just get out of it my junior year. I'll just concentrate on baseball. And 2 years before, I was playing four sports. I was so wrapped up in everything, going from season to season. So I made that decision, but I had somebody ask me, one of the linebacker fathers, go, and he did this intentionally. He goes, your kid brother Parks, I just drafted in a draft. He goes, I need some help coaching. you want to help me coach the football team? I'm like, yeah, that sounds fun. Paul, I went back out there and I fell back in love with the game.
Oh yeah.
And about midway through the season, I'm like, why did I quit? But I had that experience. I went back my senior year and I attacked that season through the lens of a coach. I had now had a year of coaching experience, even though I was a junior in high school, to understand why I'm giving these drills and accountability. Right. And I thought, all right, so I barged in on the head football coach's office, Ken Nettleman, who's a legend around our parts in Shelby County. And he goes, Mike, I'm going to let you back on the team. He said, you were man enough to tell me in person, come on.
Right. Paul, and your dad made you face that fear. He said, okay,
said,
if you're going to quit, you got to go talk
to
him in
person. You got to grab the bull by the horn. You can't
just call him on the phone and just not show up. You got to go and face it.
And that's why he let me back on the team, because Coach Netherland was notorious about not letting people back on. And anyway, so long story short, I learned another position. I finally got in the lineup 5 or 6 games into it, and we won state my senior year, and it was their first state championship and probably the best team that ever came out of Memphis. And so right after that, I'm like, I like this coaching thing. And middle school, I started coaching middle school, but all the coaches I had, in that year, this really impacted me. And, it's just a list of guys that really made a huge impact, from, a motivational to, some guys were more reserved, more tactical, but you had a team of people that were just, everything lined up that year. And then obviously a lot of the baseball guys at Miles and Castle, those guys down in Northwest, were this Joe Platt, the sit there and name guys.
That balance of expected a lot, tense, wanted to win, but supported, gave you praise.
Right.
Good job. That you knew that they cared about you as people.
And one message I would give to young parents and even parents of high school kids is that let your kid play anything. Let them join the band. Let them get into music. Let them be part of the plays in the off season. If they're not playing a sport, be involved, because you're going to just learn so many things, other than what you're learning in the classroom. And it's okay to play multiple sports. Don't settle on one sport and then bet the farm on it. To learn from so many different people. Yeah. And you're going to have some coaches that might not be great. That's fine. You get to learn.
You got to deal with those too.
Yeah, you got to deal with those.
We had a few mutual coaches that were.
Yeah, we did. We won't go there.
And you have to overcome that.
That's a whole other podcast.
You have to that's right. It's a whole other podcast. Teachers that just don't match up with your personality or whatever, and so you have to overcome that. But it's interesting you talk about that, because going into other things and multi-sports, because we both have kids that are adults now. My son still playing baseball. He's trying to get signed as to a professional contract right now.
Fantastic.
And my daughter was in theater and music her entire life, and that was just her life. And it was amazing what those experiences help in the arts, sports.
It does.
Determination. You got the teamwork, you got the hard work, you got all those kinds of things. You're dealing with disappointment, adversity, and not making the lead role in this show, and dealing with all of it. So talk about how like our parents, we both have parents that were very supportive of our activities and showed up. We took road trips together. I remember in the blue van going to mini trips.
Yes.
Blue van. We were all amazed that it had cruise control, and your dad would drive with his feet up on the dashboard, listening to Willie Nelson. My dad would bring the music down there.
Right.
And but they showed up. And we learned how important we were based on them showing up for us. So talk a little bit about that impact that your parents have had, and how you tried to impact your parents and what other parents.
Well, I think as parents, and you learn this now, from, the experiences that you went through, and you appreciate them more as an adult as you get beyond that. My dad always said, I'm going to be a lot smarter to you than I am right now. Trust me on that. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And of course, as you get older, you're like, wow, mom and dad are pretty smart. And, but those experiences were just so incredible, and so impactful that I'm proud to say my children are having kids now. And those, I can really tell they're locked into, given that good foundation. They're going to be great parents. They've already proved that. And that just thrills me to no end, because that's the most important job really as a couple is, and for me as a coach, wins and losses are great. I understand that, but really, I want my guys to be productive. I want my guys to leave the program that they're a part of and be good, productive citizens and, go about business. But having those lessons from our parents, were just so incredible. I mean, I remember our moms would just, we lived in Germantown, so we had a rotation of, Chris Koppich's mom and Forrest Neighbor's mom and our dad. We'd just rotate,
alternating, taking people to games and
it was
things like
it
that,
was
and
because
practices.
we played an insane amount of games, and
Right.
it was just
Yep.
constant. And
My mom was always in position to get me running around second base, to take pictures, and we
right,
still have a bunch of those. And
and really, I might start catching a cramp, and all of a sudden, this mysterious bottle of Gatorade would end up on my shoulder, going, "Michael, drink this." It's my mom. I'm like, so it's having just incredible parents, and I know part of the upbringing. I was so blessed to hear that, because now being a coach and being a teacher, and it's not always like that, obviously, and
right.
You've had to deal with that with your profession, but to be just an incredible parent to pass on to your children to me is invaluable.
Right. And one of the things that you talked about too early in the book is that you weren't getting playing time when you went back to football, and
Right.
you didn't want your dad to get involved. You wanted to handle it.
We had a man-to-man conversation.
Yeah.
And I said, he goes, "Hey, let's get back in the car." And my dad's not a hover person, but my dad's, if he sees something in right,
right.
Obviously,
right. I'm glad you mentioned that, because he's not the guy that's talking to the coaches about playing time, but he saw that something wasn't happening, and he was ready to advocate for his kid. And that's hard. That's hard to navigate. How much do I advocate for my kid? How much do I let him take the reins? But you were in a position where you were ready to do that.
I knew that my time was about to come, and I got my opportunity that next Friday night. And I said, "Dad, you got to trust the process. I got to trust these coaches. I'm taking a hit because I missed last year. I didn't show up to one weight session. I didn't go to spring practice last year. I'm a brand new defensive back." I said, "I've had to learn this, go through the process. I'm about to crack it, but I don't need you down there it can't happen." So we got through that night, and he goes, "I'm not going to promise anything else." And of course I got in the lineup, and then it was off to the races. But It was one of those things that, as a parent too, because I've been on the other side. I've coached my son when he was at the high school level, but
it's hard.
It's hard, but I knew I let the other guys coach him. I really did. I treated him. I tried to treat him like everybody else. And then after the games, we go home, and I'm like, "All right, let's watch the films, father and son now. Let's talk about what you enjoyed, and let's take the coach hat off." So, you got to create. It's like anything in life. You got to create that balance. And we had that balance in our family.
It's tough to get, because it's
tough.
I remember because I used to have a baseball training facility, and so that was what I did for a while. I gave lessons and did all that, and you'd see these people come in and they'd rent the cages, and the team would come in there, and the coach is going, "All right, good," he's playing positive and encouraging guys, and there's this one kid, he's like, "Come on," he's mad at him, and that's his kid.
Right.
So, it's hard you just can't separate the emotion that you have for your kid. And you always have to sort of hold it back and not, not overdoing it with your kid when you're coaching them,
Right.
And making sure that, that they're supported and they're, you got expectations for them, but
Right.
there's that dad relationship that sort of, the emotion just takes it to a new level. There was a situation where we were playing in a tournament in Memphis, in fact, with my son's team, and he was 12, and we were in the championship game, and we were down by 6 runs in the start of the last inning. And my son is a pitcher, and he just never was a good hitter. He just,
right.
And you didn't have pitcher only until high school, so when he in high school, he was a pitcher, and it was like, thank goodness, he was pitch. So he's in the game. I took him out for a pinch hitter, and it was, my whole family was there, and it was, I just felt the heat of and he was upset. And we ended up coming back and winning the game, but it was the hardest decision because you're not just making a decision on ability, you're making it on, this is my son too, and
he's not gonna be.
So it's definitely tough. And we have a lot of people that, that coach their kids that aren't professional coaches that are doing it because they want to do it. And it's hard to do that. And so it takes a lot of mindfulness to do that. But okay. How about, so I'm going to go back a little back into your, you talked about in your book, this is my part of the book. Right here, my part of the book. You texted me and you said, hey, I got this book coming out, you're texting all your old buddies and going, it's coming out in June, and I talk about Northwest and you're in it, 2 exclamation points. Right. I'm like, okay. Right. So I get home late the other night, and the book is in the mail. I got my book and I'm reading, I'm getting fired up about the Germantown High School situation and the coaches giving the fiery speeches. You're all in, you're picking all the hardest guys to go up in practice, and I'm getting fired up. Your dad's saying, let's kick their ass before the state championship game. And then come to my part. We're going to Northwest. All right, what's my part going to be? I'm going to be the good teammate. I'm going to be the guy that was, so fast. And, this is kind of the catalyst of the team. And you say, I'm going to make this speech that my coach said about not partying and staying out all night, taking care of ourselves, because we can be really great and have this team meeting. And my old teammate, since I was 7 years old, Paul Bakke, says, it's not going to work. I'm the villain. I'm the guy. I'm the Mike O'Neill denier. I'm the obstacle you had to overcome to get to these guys so that we could get to the place that we wanted to be. I tell you, I was just laughing my head off.
To defend that, in the original manuscript, there was a lot more. There were so many things cut out of, we got to keep the narrative going. But
that's what I kept thinking. He had to cut out all those words.
I did.
All the glorious stuff about me was my role was really, I was the bad guy. I was the bad guy.
Here's your role in that situation. You were somebody that I could trust. And I had an idea that I'm taking a page from one of the coaches, Leland Smith, that was just probably the reason I coached, that 2 short years ago said, look, how do you want to be remembered the rest of your life? How do you want to party, or do you want to give it up for a season? He goes, the discipline that it takes to do that. If you can get everybody on board, it's on. Right. We won a state championship. And then our year we played together, we won 39 games in a row, and it still holds the record. 44-6 is the most wins in Northwest history. So I'm not saying it happened because we quit partying, and I'm not sure all the guys quit partying, but a large majority of them did.
Right.
But I brought you in that pre-meeting to say, what do you think? Do you think it'll work? And you've been around those guys. I was the new guy in because I transferred from another junior college.
I'd seen what was going on. I was like,
this is a
tough audience.
It's a tough audience. And that meeting it didn't start out good. And then I got to the point, and then we kind of got on board with it, and we kind of took off. So you were there for a great
year. That was a gritty bunch of guys.
Big time.
That we did not, it just kind of refused to lose. And that was a special team, special circumstance. And I've shared this with you, that last day, when we were done, I just said, I just don't want this to end. It was such a great experience. And the other thing is my dad says this, I'm not sure if I've said this to you, but our parents talked about this after where our career was over, like on the, going back, they both talked about it's not going to get better than this.
Right.
This is the top.
Right. Yeah.
They knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was great. So
Yeah.
it was really good to see that, to see that, remember about those times. And like you said, the coaching that we got was really made us believe in ourselves, but
Sure.
challenged us to be our best, cared about us as people, and told us when we did well. And we're, both of us,
Well, you mentioned
are
earlier
grateful for that.
what I liked about coaching and how I wanted to be a coach. I thought, I want to coach how I like to be coached.
Right.
I like the discipline aspect, but I also like the positive reinforcement aspect of nice job, way to give 100%, because that just got me, then I'm all in. And as a coach, I tried to do that. I was totally a player's coach, but I was one of these coaches that, accountability was, very important to me, and walking the line. And there are times that you gotta, you gotta play that bad cop,
but you have to have a relationship.
You got to have that relationship, and everybody, you have clients that respond to different treatments. Kids are the same way. They respond to different ways you approach.
Right.
Some kids need, come on, let's go. And other kids are like, all right, let's step back and look at what's happening. So it's a balancing act.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay. So you talked about, your coaching career, you got in the business world, you realized, okay, I've got this opportunity, you were wanted as a coach. Your wife was supportive of you coaching. And you talked in an interview that you sent me in Memphis about the impact, the payoff,
right,
that you got from it.
Yeah.
What was the payoff for coaching for you?
The payoffs has been, matter of fact, this morning I just talked to one of my ex-players. He provides a service that I'm going to use him for. I've used it before. And we got a chance just to talk. How are you doing? He goes, Coach, we hadn't talked in a while. I've got two of the most beautiful children. And it was just a platform to hear how he's doing and what he's doing in life. And to me, when you see these guys and girls that are productive people that are putting back to society, to me, that's the payoff to me. It's you had a small part into that, and they're making good decisions and living their lives to their expectations, and that's the payoff to me, and that's the thrill in seeing it for sure.
Yeah. Well, my brother's a coaches
Yes.
basketball.
He's a great
and
one too.
Anytime I go to Memphis and we go out to eat, there's somebody saying, "Hey, Coach Bakke,
Yeah.
how's it going?" It's amazing how much of an impact that he's had. It's amazing how much impact you can have for
some coaches. It's an ego thing. For me, it's not an ego thing. I mean, it's to me a great coach. Vince Lombardi. You have Nick Saban. You have these people at the top of their game, and if you look at them, they leave their egos out of it. Tom Landry, that guy, his ego was never part of the big picture.
Right.
And to
it's
me,
about the players.
It's about the players, and it's about
like being a parent. It's not about the parents. It's about the kids.
Amen. And I was able to see that early on, and when I started going after that dream of coaching, I was still coaching. I was coaching at the middle school level because the high school guys heard I coached one year before I played my senior year, and so I started coaching the middle school, and then the staff asked me, "Hey, do you want to work the press box?" I'm like, "Yeah." So, I'm doing hardcore high school stuff as a 19, 20-year-old, and in Germantown is a premier football powerhouse in the state, and I was just learning so much, and then started having children and thought, I need to make more money, and I don't need to go back to school for my master's, and I can't ask my family to do that. So part of the book is really wrestling with what I want to do in life, and let's go make some money. And then it kind of, you could tell I jumped around, I job hopped. I never got fired from anything. I just wanted more money and better company car. And I knew after about my fourth job, I thought, this isn't what I meant to do. It's just not closing deals like this. I need to, my wife kept pushing me in that direction to do that. You know, we need to pray. I mean, spirituality is a very big part of our life.
Talk about the role of faith in your journey.
Yeah, I don't see how Paul, you know, with the cancer thing later, but I don't see how people do it without it. I just, you know, whatever your religion is, whatever my religion, I need to pray, and that's a big part of what we do as a couple, and it's really has clarified to make some key decisions, even well beyond cancer, but it's really on taking career moves.
Makes you step outside of your own self and get a better perspective, a bigger perspective on things.
You don't make a snap decision about something, and you get some clarity. And to me, the faith gives me clarity. So I finally made that transition, like I said, to full-time coaching and teaching. And you know, I remember Ernest Chisholm. He was old-time principal of Germantown. He was recruiting me early. He goes, Coach Netherland likes you. And those guys, that wasn't their style. They were working the tri-state area to get coaches in. They usually didn't come to ex-players. And they said, Ernest Chisholm said, look, if you can coach, I know you can coach. I know you can teach. If you can do it on the field, you can do it in the classroom. And so that kind of got me thinking, and then I chipped away at it, you know, while I was job hopping. And then I won a car in a raffle that was in one of my chapters, and that gave us enough money we just had our third child. I thought I was going to completely get out of the coaching dream, and I won a car in a raffle. And I took those proceeds and said, honey, what do you think? She goes, let's do it. You can student teach, wrap it up, and you're on your way. So that's what happened.
Well, through all of this, the other thing you talked about was being blessed. So how's Mike O'Neill been blessed?
Oh man, well, for one, I've met just my soulmate, you know, who's really taught me just a lot about my spirituality and just really very important in my life, just in terms of raising a family. To me, there's nothing better. Yeah. So that's where I've been blessed in that regard. Yeah. And I've been blessed that I've been able to go after my spiritual gift. My gift was working with kids and working with eventually high school kids. And, you know, people always said, why don't you look to get into college? There's more money. I'm like, that's not why I got into it. You know, if I was doing that, then I just would have stayed in sales and chased the money. So you got to, and that's part of my, you know, I mentioned that in my book too, is opportunity. There's opportunity all around us. A lot of us just don't, sometimes we got to step back, and see the opportunity and sense it and follow up. So, and that's what I was able to see.
Sometimes the path you're on, you feel like, oh, that's just the path I'm on, and you can change it.
Right.
There's
you can change it.
Opportunity out there.
And sometimes that happens when one door shuts, sometimes another one opens. So you got to be in tune. You got to have your head on the swivel.
The reappraisal we talked about before.
Absolutely. Amen.
Well, all right, Mike, I think we've taken on a lot of topics here, man. I so appreciate you coming on this podcast with us. You know, the 10 or 12 people that'll see this, you know, awesome. We'll try to get this out here to as many people as possible. Mike's got a great book, Don't Back Down. Talk to people about how they can get your book.
Yeah, it's funny. I was kind of looking at, I got them in a couple, obviously, bookstores here in Memphis, but somehow Amazon picked it up, and then Barnes and Noble, so you can find it online. I was going to reach out to are you still in Huntsville, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know you guys have I think it's Snail Books or something. I'm going to talk to them.
Snail on the Wall? She's a friend of mine, Lady Smith.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna reach out to them after
she'll be all in.
And I get my books go through a distributor that the bookstores love, and that's, I get max discounts, and but it's online. In the meantime, you can buy it at Amazon as well as Barnes and Noble, and um, we're doing well. We sold 400 or 500 in the Memphis area, and people, the response has been good, and I've had a couple of reviews. So um, two things you do when you write a book. For one, you need to get a good editor. Don't get somebody in the English department. And then number two, get somebody that can design a book cover. You don't want somebody in the graphics department or the art department. So I knew that those were two important things, and I couldn't be more thrilled. So I appreciate the opportunity to get on and talk to you, Paul.
Hopefully get that message out to more and more people. There's something in it for anybody.
Yes.
And
yeah,
so
it goes well beyond.
Lastly, what would you say? We deal with clients who are dealing with a lot of adversity, anxiety, OCD, a lot of fear. What would you say, in your experience, would be, what do you do with all that? How's your experience? What would you tell someone that's dealing with something similar that you are, as you are?
When I first got cancer, you had to go through those emotions of what now? In a couple of different directions. And I've seen people of all walks of life, whether it be MD Anderson, Sloan Kettering, West Clinic. You can tell when some people are just defeated, when it's, oh man, they're consumed by it. And I get you. Cancer's weird. You could be at different stages. And some people, when they find out, they're eaten up with it. I was able to see mine and go, you know what, I can make a decision about this. And I always go back to Shawshank Redemption. Get busy living or get busy dying. You can make that choice. It's almost like the scene in the movie where it doesn't end good, the old guy that gets released, and then you get the other scene that the guy's going down to Mexico to meet his buddy. I'm going to live. Mm-hmm. And to me, you just got to slow things down a little bit, evaluate the situation. And because there's going to be some silver lining out of it. It's going to get better. But here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to get on the internet and just fill my head worth of just senseless things that are going to drive me nuts and chase something. I'm going to make sure I'm talking to quality people in my support system and come up with a plan and try not to overreact. I'm going to use the baseball analogy. If I'm in the field and I just make an error, I got to forget about that. I can't take it to the plate because I'm going up the bat the next inning, and I can't be consumed with that. Right. I got to forget that.
I learned that does not help me.
I learned that as a coach. You got a bad play. A guy got sacked, or we just gave up a big play. We got to go back to work. Yeah. I can't be consumed with that. So part of my foundation taught me in terms of attitude and, in dealing with it. And I know all situations, and sometimes it's easier said than done, but I would say step back, take a breath, talk to your God, talk to your spouse, roll those sleeves up. Let's rock and roll.
All right. On that note, we're going to let you out of here, Mike. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Paul Bakke.
Man, good talking to you, and you take care. And I want to keep hearing about that successful fight.
All right, my friend. Talk to you later. Love you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Love you.